Welcome into another edition of Sports Junkies. I'm Sparky Fifer from Sports Radio 105.7 FM, The Fan in Milwaukee. He is Gery Woelfel of the Racine Journal-Times here at RacineSportsZone.com. Time to talk Bucks basketball. And there was an interesting article. We talked about it last night.
You couldn't get through that intro fast enough to get to the topic.
I want to get to this. We talked about it last night on the Pick and Save Basketball postgame show on our station, on The Fan, about an interesting article on Grantland, talking and taking quotes from John Hammond and Mark Lazary, owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm not sold necessarily that these two are on the same page. John Hammond says everything that I wanted to hear, talking about the fact that, you can either sell winning or you can sell hope. We're selling hope at this point, and we're going to do this the right way. And it's important that we get our young guys playing time. Okay, fine. Now, again, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the quote in front of me. Mark Lazary, the owner of the Bucks, in the very next paragraph of the article, by Zach Lowe, I think is the guy's name.
It was, yeah.
And the very next thing says, it's about making the playoffs for us. It's not about making sure so-and-so gets playing time. It's about winning at this point. If Mark Lazary believes that, I am categorically 100% against Mark Lazary and that statement, because that is Herb Cole-esque. That's what that is.
I was going to say, are you going to start a little protest outside the Breakfast or bring back Herb?
If he believes that, then we're right back to where we were. From the aspect of, you are not ready to go compete for a championship. You need another talented player to go along with the two you have in Giannis and Jabari Parker. You need one more guy. Now, having said that, I don't know what it's like to be an owner of an NBA franchise, but I can imagine it's very lucrative when you see, playoff money staring you in the face, being waved at you, for you to look at that money and say, "No, I'm not interested. I'm looking at the bigger picture of trying to win a world championship." Now, they say that, but if you do what I think they're going to do, which is get to the trade deadline, and if they're in it, then possibly make that deal to try and get themselves in the playoffs as that 7 or 8 seed, just to be in the playoffs, and then the new owners can say, "Hey, we're in the playoffs as the 7 or 8. Woohoo! We did a good job in year 1." And some of us would be like, "Yeah."
Well, I brought this up on the post-game show last night with you on the radio. You look at the Brooklyn Nets, and they're going to battle the Bucks probably for one of those spots, 7th, 8th spot, and they've already come out basically and said, "Hey, we're blowing it up."
Well, it's not working.
They're waving the white flag already, saying, "Hey, this season's pretty much over. We want to change things up." The Bucks are going through a brutal stretch right now in December, 15 games, and like I said a month ago or whatever when the schedule came out, they'll be lucky if they win 3 games this month. Lucky. They'll go 3-12. Okay, so that means they're going to be way under 500 come the end of December. The good news for the Bucks, January is almost
the exact opposite?
Exact opposite, where they got a bunch of bad teams. They play the Knicks twice. They got the 76ers. They got the Magic, some really bad teams.
I'll wait on Orlando for a second. So Orlando might be a playoff team themselves.
Well, maybe, but they're not in the upper echelon.
No, but you were talking about the teams they'd be battling for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
So Orlando might be one. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Because they're so bad,
Right.
So if the Bucks weather the storm, through January, they're coming to the trade deadline in February, and they could be in the 6th, 7th, 8th hole.
Not again.
And not Hammond, but Jason Kidd's going, "You know what? If we could only get a shooting guard here,
right?
They're going for it. They're not going to fiddle around."
Right, and this is where I'm at on it. If Giannis is playing at a high level, and Jabari's playing at a high level,
right,
and that's why you're in this situation, okay. But I'm only okay with not doing anything. We're going to continue to go for it, so we're not going to sell off. We're going to stand pat. I'll deal with it. I'm not going to be happy, but I'll deal with it. But if you trade away, say, I don't know, John Henson or somebody like that to go get some...
Or Steven Jackson?
So go get some 35-year-old shooting guard, I'm going to be furious.
Hey, do you like Gerald Henderson, by the way? I think he'd be a nice fit on that team.
Doesn't do much for me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I'd like. If we start talking about wish lists, okay, and I don't know.
Now, don't go crazy and say, "Gee, I want Kevin Durant."
No.
Don't be like some of these people.
No.
Okay, who?
But I'm just looking at young guys.
Yeah.
And not saying you can get any of them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. But Terrence Ross was the guy I wanted the year they drafted Henson. And Terrence Ross...
No way.
I agree. But Terrence Ross went behind before Henson. Terrence Ross last year didn't do much. Actually, Terrence Ross hasn't done anything in his NBA career until this year. He just started figuring it out.
Trade him.
I agree. That was one guy.
Okay.
Another guy I wanted in that draft, Jeremy Lamb in Oklahoma City, and he's sitting on the bench behind Roberson now. I think you can get Jeremy Lamb.
I agree. I think that's
He's long now. Again, I look at him, and I wonder how much his head is actually in the basketball game. Because his facial expression looks like he's on cloud 9 somewhere. I'm not sure where he is. So I don't know how intense he is and how much he wants to be great and all that. And that's up to the Bucks to figure out background checks. But his raw potential and how long he is at the shooting guard could be really good for this team.
You know, I would do a couple things. I would go talk to the Atlanta Hawks. Now that Danny Ferry is out of the equation, because Ferry and Hammond and those guys did not get along after the old Jeff Teague deal went down, okay? I've been told that Atlanta would be willing to trade Horford as one possibility. And number 2, the guy I really like is Schroeder, the point guard.
They just drafted him.
Absolutely, but they gave Teague a big contract. The word was that they were going to let Teague walk and then bring Schroeder in to go through the rebuild. But now they got both those guys there, and I think they'd be willing to trade him under the right circumstance. If I was the Bucks, I would try to get one of those two. I would love Horford. I think Horford would be the perfect fit for this team. I don't know what Atlanta would want for him, but he's the one really good big guy that might be out there that's available.
They need a post player.
Absolutely, in the worst
when
way.
you get to the offseason, I would love Greg Monroe. That's the guy that I would love to play
That
in
would
the
be a
post.
bad pickup.
Put him at center, let him go with Jabari and Giannis, and those guys all grow together. Defensively, he's not the best in the whole wide world.
Right.
But it's serviceable enough where you need a post scorer. It's funny. We had a caller call in the post-game show last night. He said, everybody talks about Oklahoma City. Oh, let's be like Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And he said, Sparky, what did they want exactly? They won games.
You got to be realistic.
No, but hold on.
Yeah.
I go, you're right. They haven't won a ring. I go, and why is that? He goes, because they don't have a post player inside. And I go, right. Now, the Bucks.
Well, I'd beg to disagree.
Oh, that's absolutely.
I think Ibaka and Adams are actually a pretty good tandem.
They're not post players. Ibaka goes outside.
But you know what?
They're not post players.
Look at today's NBA. Nobody has a great center anymore.
You give Al Horford to Oklahoma City, they win a ring this year.
Oh, sure.
Right now.
But that's an exception.
But that's fine.
How many teams have great centers? Not many.
Okay, but in this situation for Oklahoma City, we're talking about why they can't get over the hump.
Yeah.
Well, when they get to teams like San Antonio that have
I disagree with you.
You have to find a post
They
player.
had to go through growing pains. I mean, when you look at Durant and Westbrook, they're still relatively young players. They had to run into the Spurs.
Russell Westbrook is getting ready to leave here in a couple of years.
Well, that's true.
We all know that. So the window's closing.
Yeah, and I think Durant will as well.
Right. Okay, but so the window's closing. And if you're the Bucks, that's why I said before, and I'll say it again. I mean, in a perfect world, you get Jahlil Okafor from Duke, and you can talk about winning championships going forward if you get Okafor. But you're not going to, because you're going to be in a situation like we talked about probably where they're going to be in playoff contention, and that's what they're going to do. Instead of trading Mayo, trading Ersan, getting Zaza out of there, and letting these guys go, keeping your core, but not necessarily playing for the playoffs.
While we're on the topic of centers real quickly, one of the big rumors I heard over the summer was that the Pacers and the Bucks had talks about sending Hibbert to the Bucks and Sanders going to the Pacers. Nothing happened.
I'd rather have Sanders.
Not me.
I'd rather have Sanders.
Absolutely not. By the way,
Hibbert doesn't play.
Does Sanders?
No, but at least when Sanders is out there, he gets in foul trouble. Fine, but at least. No,
okay, let me ask you
this. This is my thing. Hold on. This is my thing. When Sanders is out there, at least he's playing hard. When Hibbert's out there, you don't know if Hibbert's thinking about what he's having for dinner after the game, or if he's thinking about the basketball game.
I agree. You question.
They're both overpaid.
I totally agree with you. I mean, it's almost like.
Right, you're just trading one round for another.
But I'm curious if they'll revisit it. One thing Hibbert does is...
I don't want Andre Drummond either, for anybody that brings that idea up. I don't want him either. He's another guy that doesn't know how to play in the block. Van Gundy's trying to teach him.
But again, he's a young kid.
Right, but Van Gundy is trying to teach him how to play.
DeMarcus Cousins his first couple of years. He was
a hell of a lot better than Andre Drummond.
I don't know.
DeMarcus Cousins was established as a post player coming out of college, Gary. Yes, he was.
Yeah, but what is Drummond? 20 years old?
Yeah, 20-something.
I mean, you got to give this guy a chance. I think he's going to be really good eventually.
Well, it's going to be
when he's 23, 24 years old. Not right now, but when he fully develops.
If you're the Bucks, what's the bigger need for you right now with this franchise? Finding a post player or finding a shooting guard?
Post player, without a doubt.
See, we're all on the same
Without
page.
a doubt. They got to find some physical guy inside.
that can score inside.
That can just be a rebounder. You look at Giannis and you look at Jabari, they're getting 6 rebounds a game. And then you can say, hey, we can live with it if our center gets 10 to 12. Well, the problem is Larry Sanders is averaging 6 points. You know where that ranks right now in the NBA?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
He's not even on the NBA's top 50 list for rebounding. And you're paying this guy $11 million. Well, that's got to be addressed.
Yeah, but Gery, he's not in the top 15 minutes played either.
Whose fault is that?
He's averaging horrible minutes played.
Well, last night it was his fault. He got in foul trouble.
Absolutely.
And obviously Kidd would play him if he felt he could keep him out.
I agree.
There. So
I don't know what they're going to do with Sanders. Because I don't think you can give Sanders away at this point.
No.
And that's a big issue because they're stuck with that contract.
Yeah, the only way they give him away is if they package. I mean, if they come along and say, hey, we don't want Brandon Knight. Okay, you want Brandon Knight? Take Sanders.
Larry Sanders.
Exactly.
He's Gery Woelfel. I'm Steve Sparky. Fifer, thanks for tuning into another edition of Sports Junkies, talking a little Bucks basketball. Talk to you again next week right here at RacineSportsZone.com.